Many times, writers will ask me when I'm working with them if they should stop reading in the genre in which they're writing because people get nervous about being too influenced by other writers' ideas or taking their eyes off their own thing. They get worried that there's going to be too much noise or influence around them. And it's a great question. And I don't think there's a given answer, a single answer. It depends on the writer, it depends on the situation, it depends on the project. Does that project include a lot of research and outside things coming into it anyway? And managing that input while you're doing this work, I think, is a really important consideration. Now, there's some people, when I said that actual word input, that have, I'm thinking of the Clifton Strength Finders personality test. Is that what it's called? A personality test? I think so. A characteristics test. Well, the Strength Finders test has input as one of the things. And a lot of writers have this characteristic where we love all the things that come in, the input, because we're readers. So we have the input of everything that we're reading and we're used to that. We're used to reading a lot. So it sometimes is unnatural when we're writing to suddenly stop with all the input. Some writers have to, though, and some writers feel that it's helpful and important for them to put that barrier up. So you have to think about, for that writer, what are they feeling, what are they working on, what works for them, what doesn't. If they're nervous about reading other things, then you want to encourage them not to. I have on occasion, I once had a writer who was working on a project for parents, and there was another book that had just hit the marketplace for parents that felt quite similar to what she was doing. And she was so nervous about this book. It was like a monkey on her back looking over her shoulder while she was writing, and she kept worrying, am I doing what they did? Is this too much the same? So I finally actually went and read the book for her so that I could tell her, no, it's not the same. It's totally different. You're doing something really different. And I could reassure her. And that was a great comfort to her because she did not want to let anything in. She did not want the input. I am right now working on blueprint for a memoir, and I find myself wanting all the input. And so I've been going back, I've been reading, I have a giant stack of books here. I've been reading memoirs, I've been reading all the books about memoir, and I'm finding it exhilarating and exciting, and it's helping me clarify what I want to do in my pages and what I don't want to do, what's already out there that's been done so well. There's so many great books on writing memoir. I'm not interested in repeating what they do. I want to add something to the conversation. So positioning is a huge part of what I'm thinking about while I'm writing. I also happen to know this content, this blueprint content, just like the back of my hand. So I'm not worried about being influenced or knocked out of my lane or anything like that. So the input that I'm receiving is feeling really exciting and generative and helpful and not scary or despairing to me at all. And that feels really good for me. So I would be a writer in this scenario that wants the input. So just thinking about this as a book coach and thinking about what your writer is taking in terms of other work is a really good thing to think about and to talk about. Occasionally I will encounter a writer who is too focused on all the outside things, and it's everything that they're writing feels like a response to other things that are out there, or like they're just being what's the word I'm looking for? They're just pinging off everything that's out there, and they're not thinking their own, finding their own lane and staying in their own lane and figuring out what do they want to write and what is their message and what is their voice. It's too much. It's actually a kind of, I think it comes a lot from academia, because in academia, the the protocol is that you stand on the shoulders of the scholars who've come before you, and you take their work and you build upon it, and you reference, that's the word I was looking for, you reference back to it. So you're it's very referential, like this person's work and now we think this, and that person's work and now we think this, and we build and we build and we build. That academic kind of reflective writing is expected in that universe. But when you're writing out in the for the trade, as we called it, that sort of writing sometimes feels stilted and academic. If somebody's writing nonfiction, for example, and they're constantly quoting other sources and referring to other sources, we can't hear their authority. We can't hear their voice. And so sometimes if that's happening with a writer, I will counsel them to stop quoting other people and to stop referencing other people, and let's just see what you have to say and what you think. So that's a situation in which there was too much input. Um, I can't think of a situation where not enough input was a problem, because that's just a writer. Well, it's like what we would call the cabin in the woods writer. They're just going off and listening to their own imagination and ideas and thought processes, which is obviously can be a very powerful thing as well. So I don't see any problem with the not enough input part, unless they're writing a book that's purportedly researched and they're not doing that work. But for for memoir or fiction, certainly there doesn't have to be that kind of input. So it's just an interesting thing to think about, and something that you will encounter as a coach, and that you will see different stances from writers at different times. And again, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's something to be aware of. And from the writer side of things, for me right now, as a writer who is really into my topic and feeling excited and all the gears are spinning, I love all the input. Give me all the input. I'm just devouring all the books, and it's really fun and helpful. So sometimes that happens too. So whatever your stance or your writer's stance is around this, again, it's just good to know. It's good to talk about. It's good to pay attention to and see where they are on the input scale, or the reading while writing scale. It's just a good thing to think about.